Hello everybody, good afternoon. It's April 1st, 4 p.m. and we are starting our webinar. We're starting our webinar called Safety and Business Continuity Planning during COVID-19 Experiences from the Field by Björn. That's what we'll start with, and later on at around 4:30, Min will join us with a webinar, a presentation on contractual and employment tools in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Let's just start with 2 or 3 minute chat. In your practice, you are the head of resolutions practice at ACSV Legal, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Perfect. And how do you see your clients asking you questions on the COVID-19 pandemic? Is there what trends do you see in your practice?
Yeah, I mean, recently we received a number of inquiries from our client relating to, termination of the labor contract with the employee, how to do the mass layoff. How to do the mass layoff of the with the employee in their company. Also, like some of our clients consider to close a representative office or the subsidiary in Vietnam. So yeah. I can imagine that the COVID-19 pandemic affect massively of the operation of all the company in Vietnam.
Yeah, totally. So do I. So does everybody. It's very clear that there's a huge impact, of course, on any type of business, any sector, and I'm very happy to have you all. Warm welcome to everybody joining in. We have a fair number of attendees. We have about 34 attendees. So I would say, without too much further ado, let's share your presentation, Min, if you can. And sure. For the people that are joining the webinar, they have the opportunity to ask questions during the webinar. So let's try and see if we can keep the length of the webinar about 15 minutes. And sorry, of the presentation about 15 minutes, and then maybe we have some 5 or 10 minutes left for Q&A. All right, lovely.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah, people can see it.
All right, so let me take the first spot. Actually, I should take the second spot, but let's look at some legal perspective from that affect us in the recent days. So today I will present on behalf of ACSV Legal to discuss with you on several contractual and employment tools in response to COVID-19 pandemic. So the agenda, we will talk about 4 topics. The first one is the negotiation on salary decrease. The second one is employment termination or suspension. The third one is force majeure or impediment clause in the contract. And the last one is the policy change in policy to support for business. So a little bit introduction about myself. I believe that all the participants
sorry, can I just ask you one thing? We are still on the main screen of your presentation, so you need to help us by scrolling down to the right slide in your presentation. So I believe you're on slide 4 now.
Sorry, Kudo?
So you have a presentation, right?
Yes.
And I think you're on slide 4 now, but we are still seeing slide 1.
Oh, sorry.
No problem. Can you see if you can move your shared screen to the 4th slide, please?
I actually already moved.
Okay, let me otherwise help you by downloading the handout. The audience is also able to download the handout by clicking.
Oh, okay. Can you see now?
Yeah, there we go. Now we go. Yeah.
Oh, so it seems like the slideshow does not work. Okay, so I will keep the presentation like this.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, let's see. Okay, better. Yeah, so I already discussed about the agenda. Now you can see it on the screen, I believe.
Yeah.
Yes. I believe also like my profile is presented on the website of DBAV and our company introduction as well. So you can always like contact me after this webinar. So to avoid to take a lot of your time, I just go straight to the content of our presentation deck. The first topic that we should discuss about is how to negotiate with the employee to reduce the employee salary packet, right? This is the topic I think like a lot of business right now will care about. So we have two different ways to reduce the employee salary package. The first option is mutual agreement, of course, right? For this option, normally, I mean, it is an ideal scenario that you can convince your employee to agree to cut down their salary packet. But in reality or in practice, this is not always, you know, like the mean that you can rely upon, because often of the time the employee will very defensive and they are reluctant to accept this request from the employer. So in case you have an ideal scenario that you can successfully negotiate with your employee to reduce the employee salary packet, then you should record the salary reduction by an amendment agreement or a new labor contract. The second way to reduce the employee's salary is that we can base on a legal ground under the labor code to convince the employee to accept a work suspension. So for work suspension, you can start the conversation with the employee by saying that, look, you know, this is the time that we don't have much work to do. We cannot arrange work for everyone, and combining with all the government restriction, we need to cut down the. We need to like reduce the labor force to save the business. So in this case, the employer or the company have a legal ground or have the foundation to negotiate with the employee for a work suspension wage. Work suspension wage should not be lower than the regional minimum wage that's stipulated by the government. And currently in certain city, for example, like Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh City, Bình Dương, and Dong Nai, the regional minimum wage is around $190 per month.
About that, Lynn. It says that the employer can negotiate a package. Does that mean that it is optional to negotiate it and that the employee can actually refuse this? Or is it because of the force majeure aspect of this disaster with COVID, something that the employer has to accept?
Yeah, so actually, you are correct that this is still like leave the decision in the hand of the employee. So if the employee if the employee accept the employer offer to stay at home, does not need to go to the office, does not need to work from home, but they can still like enjoy a small wage per month, for example, like a few million Vietnam dong per month, and they do not need to do anything, then they can just accept the offer. So in this scenario, it's different from the other scenario. The other scenario is that or the previous scenario that I discussed is that the employee still need to work, still need to follow the employer order or direction, but their salary will be reduced.
Okay.
Different from that scenario. In this scenario, the employee can just stay at home, enjoy some movie, play with the kids, but still can receive like a very minimal supporting amount to raise their family.
I understand, but what I mean to say is that this is a negotiation, right? This is not something the employer can put towards the employee as a fact. They have to accept it. They have the right to refuse it.
Correct. That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So next section will be about the employment termination and suspension, and I think and this is actually the session that we don't need the mutual termination, or we don't need the mutual agreement, or we don't need the consent from the employee to implement this tool. So for termination or suspension of the labor contract, I will discuss first about temporary suspension of labor contract. So one company can rely on the occurrence of the COVID-19 pandemic to seek for this is still like mutual agreement from the employee, but I will talk about the difference between this one and the other one, suspension that I discussed previously. So in this one, it is like we can understand it's like temporarily relieve each party from performing labor contract.
Yeah.
What I mean? It means like it means that during the temporary suspension of the labor contract, the validity of the contract will stand still, and we can negotiate that okay, the labor contract will stand still, which means like I do not like the employer does not need to provide work for the employee, and the employer does not give any supporting amount to the employee as well. In the contrary, the employee does not need to the employee does not need to work or to obey to the direction of the employer. And after so for the term of the suspension, both parties can negotiate, but normally we employ this tool. The company should negotiate for the suspension term as long as the duration of the COVID-19 pandemic. Of course, I mean, for now, no one can anticipate or predict how long the pandemic will happen or will prolong. However, the employer, I think, to be prudent, they should negotiate for like 3 to 6 months for the contract to temporarily suspended, and then after the suspension period, the company must receive the employee back to work.
Okay, that's clear. Yeah.
Yeah. The next option for the employer is mass layoff due to a force majeure event, and this is actually the option that the company can employ without consent from the employee, and I believe will be the option that many companies will resort to for terminating the contract with the employee. If letting the employee go is the only option for the business survival. So in the mass layoff option, the employer can rely on the pandemic or the resulting government restriction to terminate the contract with the employee. However, in this scenario, the burden of proof will be borne by the company, and it is a quite high threshold for the employer to demonstrate or to fulfill its burden of proof.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question about that burden of proof? Can we sort of say that it's a universal truth that this COVID-19 pandemic is seen as a force majeure event?
We cannot actually. We unfortunately we cannot say so because force majeure event normally will be agreed upon by the party in the contract. So if the contract if this clause is absent or does not exist in the contract, it will not automatically introduce in the party obligation or the party's right.
Yeah. Okay, so that's one thing. So does this mean that every company has to prove that COVID-19 is a force majeure event for their business?
So okay, let me differentiate between two things we are talking about. For the commercial contract, COVID-19 is not automatically considered as a force majeure event. The party choose a commercial contract, must negotiate or must put it in the contract to be able to invoke the right later on. However, for employment contract, because a pandemic is recognized by the labor law as a legal ground for an employer to do the mass layoff. So, so in this respect, COVID-19 pandemic can be considered as a force majeure event.
Is that for every type of business, or is that only for certain businesses?
Yeah, so that would depend on like your question will the answer to your question would depend on the burden of proof that I am discussing about now, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So the condition for the company to satisfy I mean, as a condition that the company must satisfy to be able to exercise this right of unilateral terminating of the labor contract will include first of all, the employer have to demonstrate that the company has taken all necessary measures to mitigate the negative impact to the company business caused by the pandemic or caused by relevant government restriction, but they did not work. For example, we can, in early February, right, when aviation industry meet a lot of the problem of because like not many people want to get to fly anymore, so on and so forth. So all the airline company or aviation company, they will need to cut off the number of the flight per day. For example, like they reduce 9 flight per day to 6 flight per day, and then they reduce the salary of the employee. But
Yeah.
After two of that step, the business suffer a lot of financial loss, and so they have to do the mass layoff to make the business survive.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
let's try and keep a helicopter view, because we're now at slide 10, and I believe you have 23 slides. So if you can please move to keep the time in mind, Ms. Min.
Sure. Bear in mind that with this option, the employer will need to meet the requirement for advance notice, for sending advance notice to the employee, and the timeline for each advance notice will depend on the kind of the employee contract. So you can always like read more in my slide. And under the layoff plan, the employer still or the company still need to pay severance allowance to the employee who have been working for the employer for at least 12 months. And what is the severance allowance? It will depend on two parameters. The first parameter is the number of years that the employee worked for your company, and the second parameter is the employee's monthly salary.
Yeah.
And the red flag for this option is that you cannot apply it for the employee being under the medical treatment. For example, like the employee, right now have the treatment because of COVID-19 infection, or the employee being on maternity leave.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next option for the employer is to unilaterally terminate the labor contract with the employee being sick for a long time, but are unable to come back to work after receiving the medical treatment. So in this slide, you can see like the long, like the period of time that the employee receive the treatment that can enable the employer to terminate the contract will depend on the type of the labor contract as well. So you can always refer here. And so this option can be applied to the employee being infected with the COVID-19 as well. Yeah. So for the commercial contract, now you can hear a lot of people and lawyers talking about force majeure law on impediment law. Under Vietnamese law, we have two different terms for force majeure. Basically, the first term is like force majeure law, and the first term is force majeure, and the second term is impediment. They are different in nature, but the legal consequence will be the same. So force majeure defined in the civil code as an event which is objectively unforeseeable and is not able to be remedied by all permissible and possible measure. Meanwhile, impediment is defined as a hindrance caused by objective circumstance which result in person with the right or obligation not knowing that their right and obligation being infringed or being or not being able to exercise his or her right or obligation. So the consequence of both the consequence of both the legal consequence of both these clause will be the same. Like it will help the affected party. I mean the party affected by the pandemic to relieve from their obligation or to excuse to perform their obligation for the period of time that the pandemic occur. However, to be able to invoke the fourth measure or the impediment clause to excuse for the performance of the contract, one must satisfy or meet with the following condition. It also depends on what is written under the contract itself as well. First of all, whether the contract specify about the triggering event for what measure. So triggering event, it can be like the declaration of the WHO that this pandemic is like global or worldwide pandemic. It also can be the occasion or the date that the Vietnam Prime Minister announced the pandemic in Vietnam. And that date actually today, this morning, I saw the declaration from Prime Minister Nguyễn Xuân Phúc announced that the pandemic now affect all the region and all the city in Vietnam.
I'm just gonna, because we have one question from one of our attendees, and I see that you are now at slide 15. We have a time constraint, so let's just jump to the next slides and see if we can round off the presentation, okay, before we get to audience questions, all right?
Okay. So, this slide is kind of about some practical tips that if you are an in-house counsel in the company or the general manager of the company, you should start reviewing all contracts with supplier, customer, and business partner which you anticipate to be affected by the pandemic or the government restriction. You should negotiate for adding the force majeure clause into the affected contract if such clause does not exist in the contract yet. And you should design a good force majeure clause specifically using an epidemic event to add into the new contract moving forward.
Lovely.
Yeah. So the next session that I will discuss a little bit about, and you can always read our slide. We will send it to all of you after this webinar. Is the government support or government change in the policy to support the business? So
let's just say that if it's okay with you, we will just move to the question from Ms. Dow from URC now. And then your advice with regards to the government, what the government does to help affected entrepreneurs and companies, we will refer to that in the post-reads. Is that okay?
Yes, so I see the question here, right?
Yeah, and I will click answer live. There we go. So Dow from USC asks, can you help to distinguish the difference between layoff due to force majeure and layoff due to economic reasons under the labor code?
Layoff due to force majeure and layoff due to economic reason under the labor code. Yeah, I am aware of the option for layoff due to economic reason, but I need to look. I need to look into the specific wording of Article 14. I do not remember much right now about what is written over there, but I believe that there is certain difference between the two clauses, and that's why they put it into different law. So let me check this question after this webinar and refer to you later. Is that okay, Kudo? Kudo?
Live Q&A. It's of course possible for everybody to share their questions. It's also perfectly fine if you don't have the answer yet, and if you can share a little bit more information on that later on, then I'm very sure that Ms. Dow or Mr. Dow will be happy with that.
Yes.
So I've just asked for another question round, maybe from the attendees. We will share the presentation and a recording of this presentation in a post read, including hopefully some insights to that other question. If there are no further questions, then I would like to thank you very much, Ms. Min, for your time and being so elaborate and also very summarizing and succinct on some points. It's pretty insightful. We've discussed what I believe is the worst comes to worst scenario. We all want our employees, of course, to stay on, because they, in most cases, are at the core of any business. So if you need to let go of your employees, you will need to also let go of experience and knowledge. So you don't want to do that. On the other hand, your business needs to know what is happening, and it's actually good to see, I think, that the Vietnamese law also provides with some tools to actually deal with this situation. Because there are so many companies out there now that are still doing okay, but everybody is looking downwards now and cutting budgets, and of course employees are also a part of that. And usually employees are very well aware. Negotiation, especially in a collectivist culture like Vietnam, can really be very helpful, I think. And can you maybe tell me a little something about how you can, for example, well, what do you see in your practice with your clients in how they do their negotiations with their employees? Are there any, best practices or so in negotiating with an employee?
Yeah, I mean, recently we handle a lot of, unilateral termination with the employee, and the case that I got about 2 weeks ago is a very difficult case. Why I said difficult case is because, like, in that situation, the employer or the company does not have a well-round to terminate the contract with the employee. Basically, like, the employer are not satisfied with the employee performance, but at the same time, they do not they did not employ the KPI to apply for the employee. They did not provide a quarterly review of the employee performance. So basically, the company does not meet certain requirement under law to have a good case to terminate the contract with the employee. At the same time, the employee is the one who know a lot about the company operation. She is like HR head, she is like she's HR department head, and she know about all the weakness of the employer case. So she actually like have a more advantage than the company to terminate the contract in this case. And all what I have all what I try to discuss with the employer is that listen, you have a weak case here, and to be able to get rid of this employee, for example, you need to move back and appreciate her work and show her that you are thankful for her contribution, and you also give her like a package to support her family after the termination. So after a while, like both the party try to reduce the anger and the temper from the both sides, and we reach the mutual termination agreement, and then she agreed to leave. But when you involve in this way, all the time remember that put your anger down, because when you let your emotion interfere your decision, then it do more harm than good.
Yeah. So summarizing what you're saying, keep the atmosphere good and professional. At the other end of the discussion is, of course, the facts. You need to have the facts straight. You need to make sure that your HR department has all the appraisal conversations ready, and that gives enough tools for the legal department to, when worst comes to worst, actually set the right steps and indeed be decisive and not let emotions take the overhand. Okay, so
Right.
very good. I think it's very good that we discussed the bottom line for many legal departments. It's probably not the nicest part of the job, but it's good to have some tools when the going gets tough. Thanks very much, Ms. Min. Can I suggest for you to turn your microphone off and also to turn your video off, and maybe move to the last slide, because there's actually, can you just move to the last slide of your presentation? Thank you. So this is the company. Ms. Min is Senior Associate with ACSV Legal and Head of the Resolution Practice. Her contact details are over there. If you have any specific questions, feel free to email her directly. We will also share the details of ACSV Legal later on with you. Okay, thanks very much.